The NBA world woke up to a headline no one expected. Clippers forward Kawhi Leonard, quiet, private, almost mysterious, was suddenly the center of a controversy that had nothing to do with basketball. Reports surfaced that Leonard had signed a $28 million endorsement deal with Aspiration, an environmental startup heavily backed by Clippers owner Steve Ballmer. At first glance, it sounded like a positive story, a superstar aligning with a green company, promoting sustainability, and using his platform for good. But then came the bombshell. According to an investigation by Pablo Torre, former employees of Aspiration claimed Kawhi never lifted a finger for the company. No commercials, no appearances, not even a mention on social media. One anonymous employee flat out said, "Never, not once. The single largest marketing payment we ever made went to Kawhi, and he did absolutely nothing." Even worse, Aspiration itself was already under federal investigation for fraud, which raised the question, was this just a shady endorsement or something bigger? Was this a clever way for Ballmer and the Clippers to funnel extra money to Kawhi outside the NBA's salary cap rules? As the news spread, the Clippers quickly pushed back. In a statement on behalf of Ballmer and the organization, they denied any wrongdoing. They insisted the deal had nothing to do with the salary cap and called any suggestion otherwise probably false. And for many fans, that was enough. Steve Ballmer has built a reputation as one of the NBA's most passionate and energetic owners. He dances in the stands, pours billions into his team, and treats his players like family. To think he'd risk everything on a backroom scheme sounded absurd. But there was one detail no one could ignore. Kawhi's contract with Aspiration allowed him to literally do nothing and still collect payment. That detail, more than anything else, was what made people pause. Not because it painted Ballmer in a bad light, but because it fit perfectly with everything we've come to know about Kawhi Leonard. This is where Stephen A. Smith stepped in, and he didn't hold back. "Let me be very clear," he thundered. "Kawhi Leonard is the worst superstar I have ever seen in sports." Now, before anyone twisted his words, Stephen A. clarified, Kawhi is undeniably a superstar. On the floor, when he's healthy, he's an unstoppable force. He's a two-time champion, a two-time Finals MVP, and one of the best two-way players of his generation. No one questions his talent. But to Stephen A., being a superstar is about more than just what happens on the court. It's about leadership, visibility, accountability, and engagement with the fans in the league that make you rich. And on that front, Kawhi Leonard, in his words, does absolutely nothing. Think about Kawhi's career. He's been in the league for over a decade, and yet fans still know almost nothing about him. He rarely speaks to the media, and when he does, his words are clipped and dry. Even his commercials reflect this. When New Balance signed him, the kids in the ad did the talking. Kawhi just stood there silently. At press conferences, his silence became a running joke. When he did speak for more than a few seconds, it was such a rare event that people were stunned. Stephen A. even joked that the one time he saw Kawhi give a full answer at a podium, he almost had to go to the hospital from shock. It's not that Kawhi is arrogant or hostile. He's just absent. Absent from the spotlight. Absent from fan interactions. Absent from the cultural role superstars are expected to fill. Other greats, LeBron, Curry, Durant, Giannis, understand that part of being a superstar means carrying the league forward. Kawhi, he seems content to fade into the background, as long as the check's clear. But if Kawhi is silent, his uncle Dennis Robertson is not. NBA insiders know the name well. Uncle Dennis became infamous during Kawhi's free agency years, constantly pushing for perks that went beyond the court. Helicopters for travel, personal masseuses, access to private planes, demands that often raised eyebrows around the league. Stephen A. made it clear, while Kawhi sits quietly, Uncle Dennis is out there making sure every benefit imaginable comes their way. It's not just about Kawhi's salary, it's about building an entire support system around him, funded by the team. And over again, Kawhi got what he wanted, regardless of how many games he actually played. This is the other side of Kawhi Leonard's story. When he plays, he's brilliant. But when he doesn't, he disappears for months at a time. Entire seasons have gone by with Kawhi either sidelined by injury or carefully load managed into near invisibility. Just last season, Kawhi gave Clippers fans hope by suiting up for 21 of the final 25 games, proving he could still be relied on. But before that, he had missed over 30 games. And this wasn't new. It's been the story of his career, flashes of brilliance, surrounded by long stretches of absence. So when people read that Kawhi had a contract guaranteeing him millions even if he did nothing, it wasn't a shock. It was just Kawhi being Kawhi, a man who, as Stephen A. put it, has mastered the art of collecting paychecks while minimizing his actual workload. But beyond Kawhi's reputation, This story raises serious questions about fairness. $28 million is no small amount. If that money was a way to funnel extra pay to Leonard outside the league's salary cap, it would give the Clippers an unfair advantage over every other franchise. Other sports have cracked down hard on these kinds of violations. In the NFL, Jerry Jones lost draft picks for lesser infractions. The Washington franchise was punished for cap manipulation. San Francisco got nailed years ago for similar stunts. To think that the NBA would ignore something this large, involving one of its top stars, is unthinkable. If nothing else, the league has to investigate. And this isn't the first time Kawhi has leveraged his position. Remember when he was a free agent? The Lakers believed they had a real shot to pair Kawhi with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But Kawhi played his cards perfectly. He told the Clippers, "If you don't trade for Paul George, I'm going to the Lakers." That wasn't a negotiation. That was a threat. And it worked. The Clippers panicked. They gave up a massive haul of draft picks and young players, including Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who today is one of the best players in the world, an MVP candidate, and a finals star. Kawhi forced the Clippers to mortgage their future just to keep him away from the Lakers. And then, he missed huge chunks of the following seasons. When you zoom out, Kawhi Leonard's career looks very different than it does on paper. Yes, he's a champion. Yes, he's elite. But he's also a master at negotiating perks, securing money, and minimizing his output. Think about it. A player who rarely speaks, a player who often isn't there, a player whose demands through his camp constantly stretch the limits of what's acceptable. And now, a player accused of signing a multi-million-dollar contract that let him get paid for doing literally nothing. It's not just unusual, it's unprecedented. Kawhi Leonard may not be the loudest star, but in terms of bending the system to his advantage, he might be the most effective. When you look at other modern NBA superstars, the contrast is almost impossible to miss. LeBron James has been the face of the league for over 20 years, carrying not just his teams, but the NBA brand itself. Steph Curry transformed basketball, embraced the spotlight, and became a global ambassador. Giannis Antetokounmpo, despite being from Greece, leaned into his role, constantly engaging with fans and media. Even Kevin Durant, for all his controversies, has never been silent. These players know that superstardom comes with responsibility, and they step into that role, whether they like it or not. Kawhi Leonard, meanwhile, stands apart. He's the superstar who refuses to play that game. No endorsements beyond the bare minimum, no promotion of the league, barely any connection with fans. And while some admire his stoic personality, the reality is this: when your silence coincides with years of missed games, and now allegations of collecting millions for nothing, it stops being mysterious. It starts being problematic. For the Clippers, this isn't just about Kawhi Leonard. It's about the entire future of their franchise. Steve Ballmer gave up everything to bring Kawhi and Paul George together. Multiple first-round picks, pick swaps, and the chance to build around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Clippers bet it all on two stars, believing they could deliver the team its first championship. Years later, what do they have to show for it? A brand new arena? Yes. A massive payroll? Yes. But also early playoff exits, constant injury drama, and now the shadow of a federal investigation hovering over a $28 million endorsement deal. Instead of becoming the face of a Clippers dynasty, Kawhi has become the symbol of a gamble that may never pay off. And here's the hardest truth: Kawhi Leonard's legacy is slipping into dangerous territory. When he won in San Antonio, people saw him as the future of the NBA. When he carried Toronto to a title, it felt like his story was cemented. But the Clippers era has changed everything. Instead of being remembered as the quiet assassin who conquered multiple franchises, he's becoming remembered for load management, absences, perks, and now investigations. If Kawhi retired tomorrow, what would the narrative be? A two-time Finals MVP who disappeared for half his career? A generational talent who refused to engage with fans? Or a superstar who found a way to take everything the league offered while giving back the bare minimum? For Stephen A., the answer is clear. Kawhi has become the worst kind of superstar, one who wastes the role entirely. And so we arrive at the big question: what happens next? Adam Silver and the NBA cannot afford to let this slide. If a player as high profile as Kawhi Leonard is involved in an alleged no-show deal connected to his own team owner, it undermines the entire salary cap system. Other teams will demand answers. Other players will point fingers. Fans will question the integrity of the game. The investigation may prove Ballmer and the Clippers innocent. It may clear Kawhi entirely. But even then, the perception is there. The story has already attached itself to Kawhi Leonard's name. And given his history of absences, silence, and perks, that perception is going to be hard to shake. Stephen A. ended his rant with the same line he's repeated for years. Kawhi Leonard is the worst superstar he's ever seen, and unless something changes drastically, that label may follow Kawhi forever. And so, the story of Kawhi Leonard is as complicated as it is frustrating. On the court, he's a champion, a finals MVP, and one of the most talented players of his generation. But off the court, he's silent, absent, and now caught up in a scandal that only seems to confirm the criticism. Stephen A. Smith has been shouting for years. Maybe Kawhi doesn't care. Maybe he never wanted the spotlight. But when you wear the label of superstar, the expectations are bigger than just basketball. And if Stephen A. is right, Kawhi Leonard has done less with that responsibility than anyone we've ever seen. But what do you think? Is Kawhi Leonard really the worst superstar in sports history? Or is Stephen A. going too far? Let me know down below in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive into the biggest stories around the NBA. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.